Welcome to the stream. There's nothing but our bell. Americans of the West Side, good evening, or good morning, as the case may be, and welcome to yet another edition of Coast to Coast, AM and beyond. Actually, way beyond borders. It's good you're all here. I'm happy to be here. And I guess I'll say it for the rest of this week. It's nice to be back on U.S. soil once again. I'm Mark Bell, and yes, this is Coast to Coast, AM, live talk radio throughout the night time on the CBC Radio Network. The largest, fastest growing, nighttime, live, all-night radio program in America. That sounded redundant. Anyway, welcome. Lots of news to talk about. Bob Dole goes to Hollywood. That's Hollywood. CBS said sex, drugs, rock and roll. Bob Dole really came after him. Yeah, Hollywood, their producers, movies, the values, the music industry, the entertainment media generally. He says that he sees it and through his friends. He says the entertainment industry is the line has been crossed. And turning out nightmares of this is happening. He about the movie Natural Killers, which he cited for its violent content, which he cited for its sexually explicit scenes. I haven't seen that one yet. He also became a Time Warner for the 2 Live Crew, which has a lot of very rough music without question. To Time Warner, he said the following, quote, I would ask the executives of Time Warner a question. Must you debase our nation and threaten our children for the sake of corporate profits? End quote, the question. So it's pretty rough stuff. And I guess point one is it fair criticism? Now, Bob Dole has never had word one to say about Hollywood before. This is new for Bob Dole, but, whenever you see Bob Dole, as I've said many times in the past, if you look very carefully, they don't do close-ups these days, but when they do a close-up of Bob Dole, you can actually see little tiny white houses with pillars and everything sort of shimmering in each one of his eyes. So it's a natural question to ask whether, since he's not come out with this kind of a blast against Hollywood before, whether this is a political tip-o-dee hat to the religious right. In other words, is it just political, and where does it lead? I mean, do you want what people want, censorship, or what? Now, interestingly, I've seen Natural Born Killers. And I think I said this over the last couple of nights because there were indications he was going to name this movie The Twins. And I think it's a very poor example. There's a lot of violence in Natural Born Killers movie. It's a very violent movie. But it's violent in other words, it had, I thought, great production value. It was violent in the genre of Clockwork Orange. That kind of a presentation. There was talent involved in the way that the story was woven. And I don't think it was a good example. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies with gratuitous violence that I would have listed before Natural Born Killers. Now, Natural Born Killers sounds good because it's got a title. It sounds like it's just nothing but violence. Norman Lear said the following: Hollywood, in its presentation of violence, and this is really, I guess I should preface this statement. Dan rather read it. But it's a pretty good blast back at Dole, and so while I ask you whether Dole's statement is fair and right, I want to ask you to respond to the one that Norman Lear now makes too. Norman Lear said, quote, Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned. End quote. Now, do you agree more with Bob Dole's statement or the Norman Lear statement, or both? Do both have value? Or do both of them lack value and scream politics? You decide. And here, from the governor of California, Governor Wilson, I've got a very unusual, I'm usually do sound bites. But as you know, Governor Wilson yesterday ended in California affirmative action. And here's what he said. All I've got to say is, if you want sound bites like that, I might have to vote for the guy myself. It was impressive. I shake up the boardhouse out there. With the stroke of a pen and with the stroke of the angry white male voter, Pete Wilson, California's governor, outlawed all California state affirmative action programs, actually only affecting at most really a few hundred state jobs. He also endorsed the California Civil Rights Initiative, expected to be on the 96 ballot. The big question is whether this kind of action on the governor's part will get him on the 96 ballot. I think not. I think not. I would not describe Pete Wilson as my guy. He's for too many things that I'm not for. Gun control is right at the top of the list. He's pro-abortion. He breaks promises. He's just done a lot of things that. Anyway, on to Bosnia. The situation is worsening. Just one day after our president seemed, underline the word seemed, to change his mind and prepare the way for U.S. ground troops to enter Bosnia, the Serbs have now responded by promising a bloodbath if U.S. troops show up in any form, and that means even a rescue operation. The leader of the Bosnian Serbs now describes the 370 UN hostages, some chained to targets, as prisoners of war, POWs. It says if we try to rescue them, there's going to be a bloodbath. Now, our military is beginning this weekend live ammunition practice in Germany for exactly the kind of operation the Serbs promise will turn into a bloodbath. Some countries are now trying to free their hostages independently of the UN. In other words, they're bargaining. Probably France. France always does that. They'll even pay to get them out. In fact, 2,000 troops are training for the operation now in Germany. 2,000 troops are offshore. Former Secretary of State James Baker said, quote, I think that we're about to embark on a very, very slippery slope without having given sufficient full consideration of just what he's doing. Well, I agree with that. CBS ended up by saying, our troops If they do go in, will not go in as peacekeepers, but full combat soldiers ready to take on anyone who gets in their way. Now, let me read you what Reuters this last hour said. The leader of the Bosnian Serbs has delivered a stern warning to the international community. He says any military effort by the United States or any other world power to free hundreds of UN hostages being held by the Serbs would result in, quote, slaughter, end quote. The Bosnian Serbs are holding some 370 UN personnel as human shields to ward off further NATO airstrikes. His warnings came as Serb shellfire rocked the eastern Bosnian Muslim enclave of Russia. So there you have it. That's where the situation in Bosnia stands is not in a good place. The president in Montana, this evening actually, seemed to be turning around again and saying, no, we're not going to put U.S. troops on the ground. There'd be a lot of people killed. I'm losing complete track of what this president is saying and what he's doing, and I think that's because he doesn't have any idea what he's saying and doing from day to day. It changes. So I have no idea what this man is about. All I can say is we've got to get him the hell out of the White House in '96, and I wish it could be earlier. The OJ trial, I have not mentioned that in a few days, but I mention it now because it's about to get interesting. Now, I've got a late report. Somebody in fact said, KMBC in Los Angeles is reporting tonight that 3 of the remaining 4 alternate OJ jurors are under investigation, may be removed as early as tomorrow. If this trial ends in this trial, because the jury pool becomes less than 12, would the next trial be ruled by the same judge, or would a different judge be appointed? That's Linda in Monroe, Louisiana. We know that at least 2, maybe even 3 jurors may be soon out, or at least being investigated. The boring but crucial DNA portion of the trial is now over. The next witness is going to be a really weird character, this Los Angeles County coroner. You may have seen him in the pretrial hearings. He's a weird character. The allegation was that he was so angry after the pretrial hearing, he went back to the coroner's office over John Alley and said something about dispatching some of OJ's attorneys or something. That's the allegation. That guy. So he'll be next on the stand, and during his testimony, the jury will no doubt see what the judge called horrible, graphic pictures of the victims at the scene. I have no problem with that, by the way. Seems to me reasonable based on the truth. Now, the OJ trial, as is, your average trial, the average murder trial in Los Angeles takes about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Since the trial is not normal, sadly normal, they spent $3 million thus far. And the worst part of it is, it may all have to happen again. Now, it happens looking more and more that way, so it's going to be a mistrial. If there is a mistrial, if OJ Simpson has to be retried, heaven help us all. Do you think that Judge Ito should be the judge, or should they seek a new judge? Do you even be a retrial? And I guess on the shoulder comes down. When I was in the Orient, it was in the airport, I believe in Tokyo, yes, in Tokyo. I met a lady who had a little baby that, and she was on her way home. She had been in Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon near the pressures for a couple of months, a lot longer than she had anticipated being there. She had this little baby, this little Vietnamese baby, and she had just adopted it, and she was as proud as could be, on her way back to the States with us. And I didn't say anything, of course, but I thought at the time, why is this woman coming all the way to Washington City to adopt this child when there are so many American children that need adoption? But if you saw 48 Hours or you saw the CBS report yesterday, maybe that's the answer why. You see, American courts now, for whatever reason, have begun to take children away from parents who adopted them years after the adoption because the regular genetic parents have come back and gone to court. And so we hear about baby Richard and baby so-and-so, baby so-and-so, and the stories go on and on. Because the courts wrench these children away from the parents that adopted them and give them back to the natural parents. And so you know what? Now I understand why that lady was sitting in the Tokyo airport with that Vietnamese child. And I think it's wrong. I think once an adoption has taken place, it is an adoption. And once a child is with the parents for years, those are the parents. And so I don't blame that lady who was on her way back from Ho Chi Minh City with this child. But you might have some comments on that. It all kind of fell into place for me when I saw the reports last night on CBS about the courts coming back and taking these children away. I'll tell you something, I'm the kind of guy who sits there with a shotgun, loaded and ready for bear. I mean, you have a child for years, and they come and try to take that child away. That's not getting in my way. That'd be my attitude. T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Oh no, all of our mental images were wrong. T-Rex, the big meat eater, the guy who stood on two legs, 30, 40 feet in the air, something like that. Wrong. The American Museum of Natural History in New York has, bones there. They've shown for years T-Rex standing up on two legs wrong. You know how they figured out that's wrong? Because they've got lots of footsteps from T-Rex, but no tail dragging behind. And see, if T-Rex was up on 2 feet, then the tail dragged behind, right? There'll be no tail tracks. So they said, we've been wrong all these times, so they've redone. Put all the bones back together a different way. Now, T-Rex stands maybe 7 feet tall. Still a very awesome animal. Still, human beings would be the bite size for T-Rex. But he'd be coming at you with, about the size of a big basketball player or something, about 7 feet. I don't know if basketball players get these 7 feet, but something like that. Close anyway. Somebody sent me a fax, worthy of a question. Equilibrium analysis, he calls himself in Southern California. The person asking the difficult questions was indeed asking the correct questions. This was a phone call the other day. It answered the question of, and I'm going to let this one hang in the air, are we players in cricket, or are we being played? I couldn't answer it. I called in, I had no answer. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, what a great question. Are we, in fact, you might put it this way, are we the architects of the cricket? And I think most of us agree there is a cricket. Are we the architects, or are we the players? Is it something that's just occurring by the end of the natural course of the events? And we're just sort of walking along with it here? Or are we the architects of it? I really, I don't know that, but some of you might want to find out. I've had a million requests to read the post predictions. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you all right now. I'm going to I'm doing it because of the ability I will read them after 1 a.m. Pacific time, or hour and a half. No better than an hour and a half from now. I will do that so that that station is joining the network at 1 o'clock while I'm not tuning in. And then I will pay all the lines on. So I'm serving notice now. And I will read them after 1 a.m. in one of the most predictions to name 2000 containing a very close in date now. Yeah, it is the first one. Hi, everybody. Good to be here. Great to be here. It's a nice, clear, beautiful night in the high desert of Nevada. And I think we're ready. Let me, well, I guess I get that. Let me give you the official version of the phone numbers. I don't do this frequently enough, and I at least need to at the beginning of the program. Write them down. And remember that we don't screen calls. We don't do that. We just pick up the next call. It's kind of scary, but it's fun. It's, live, real live radio, kind of like the way television used to be back when it was fun. So that's why we do it. Keep ringing until we answer. If the phone company disconnects you, curse them and their relatives forever, and then pick up the telephone. That was a problem. And then pick up the telephone to try again. Just remember, when you put a curse on the phone company, try to eliminate Art Bell. I mean, if you mention Bell, try to leave the Art for now. East of the Rockies, the number is 1-800-825-5033. 1-800-825-5033. Anywhere out east of the Rockies. All right, here we go. A plunge into the unknown. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, Art.
Well, you are there. Hello there.
Yes, I'm here. I'm calling you from Alaska. Our cable is down and we're on the satellite, so there's going to be a little delay between my talking and your talking.
Well, that's all right. I can bear with it as long as we know there is that delay. Then there won't be a problem.
Okay. One reason I called tonight, Art, I wanted to see if I could get a number where I could call. I wanted to get the map that Gordon Michael Scallion was talking about.
Okay, well, that would have to come directly from Gordon Michael Scallion, and I would have an awful lot of paperwork that I'd have to go through here to be able to find it for you. So all I can do is promise I'll try and find it and get that on the air for you.
That'd be great. All right, thank you, Art.
All right, thank you very much for the call, sir. Actually, I would think that the satellite delivery would be the one that would provide the least delay. Maybe not. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't know anymore. I know that when we talk very, very long distances, there is a delay, and unless you're used to doing it, it can be very confusing because everybody starts talking over everybody else. It can be done. You just have to be aware of the delay and account for it. East of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. Libertarian Nationalist from Aurora, Colorado.
Yes, sir.
How'd your vacation go, my friend?
It was wonderful.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you're back safe and sound after venturing into Chi-Com land.
I sure did.
Yeah, it must have been pretty interesting.
By the way, I've got now most of the, in fact, all of the photographs back. I have to scan a few more, and probably tomorrow I'm going to be uploading them. So the photographs from the trip are about to be available.
Okay. Well, Art, you posed a question. Did Bob Dole say what he said about Hollywood in order to pander to the religious right?
That's right.
And I think he did. I think everything the man does is politically inspired.
Me too.
And, I have immense respect for his service during World War II. But this is no longer the same man. I think somebody laid one of those pods from Invasion of the Body Snatchers next to him when he was sleeping one night, and he was replicated.
You know, I really hate to say it, but I think the Republican Party that nominates Bob Dole is making a tragic mistake and a big move toward putting Bill Clinton back in for 4 more absolutely unbearable years. So
you're right on the money, Art. You and I agree on some things, disagree on others. My ideology is pretty much in line with Chuck Carter's. That one thing we absolutely agree on: Slick Willie has got to go.
Well, at least there's some common ground.
You bet, buddy.
Right. Thank you very much. In your case, I imagine you would think that a black helicopter possibly might take you away instead as opposed to west of the Rockies. You're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with the last caller there. I think Bob Dole definitely pandering to the race. And essentially, I'm wondering why he didn't mention like Die Hard 3 or say Married with Children or Melrose Place or anything having to do with what's his name?
I like Married with Children.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying. But when you could have something to do with the fact that all of those are in one way or another connected to our good friend Rupert Murdoch. I mean,
I haven't thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and they're it's all the same thing. I mean, come on.
Well, yeah, are you? Would you class it? You know what I want to hear? I want to hear it from somebody actually in the religious right. Would that be you?
No.
I wonder what they would have to say. I mean, obviously his words were designed to use them.
Yeah.
I just wonder if people on the religious right, I have plenty of listeners in that category, saw through what he said and see it as a political statement, not necessarily a statement of real belief.
Yeah, I don't think they could be that stupid, basically, you know what I'm saying? Because if he were really genuinely concerned, he'd be blasting all of them, not just the ones that are coming from the so-called liberals like Oliver Stone and all that,
Did you hear Norman Lear's statement?
Yeah, I didn't quite get what he was saying, though, but I...
All right, well, let me give it to you again. See if you absorb this. Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
And I suppose so too.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the call, sir. I really thought that both statements, in a sense, I complained about television as well. To me, it's television. I worry a lot more about television, and specifically, I'm referring to programs that are on during the hours of children. So many left teachers, they come home at 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever. And television goes on. And whatever's there is there. Now, if we want to do something about this, it seems to me, number one, we delineate between adults and children. I watch Natural Born Killers. Besides having production values, it did not for 1 second cause me to want to go out and kill a bunch of people. Not even for a second. But I am an adult with a mind such as it is, formed already. And I can accept and assimilate this material and properly classify it. I've always been of the view that children are not necessarily in that category. And I know it sounds Hitler-esque to many, but I would have no problem with a regulation that from certain hours to certain hours, there not be gratuitous violence and sex on TV. Movies are a different thing. They've got ratings. Parents ought to be out there controlling their children, whether or not they go to an R-X-rated movie, whatever. That's the job for parents, and there are ratings that allow that job to be done. So I'm not going to blame Hollywood there. Nor do I think that most adults are influenced one way or the other by the movies with violence or sex. I think the violence is probably a lot more serious than the sex. I just really, I think Bob Dole's statement was political. That's all it's political. And I'll bet you that the people on the religious right that commented this morning, and where to get them, I would just, if I had to lay my money, I would say that they too, even though they obviously will no doubt agree with what he said, can see why he did it. Ethan, the Rockies, you're on here.
Hi, Art. I was calling from Leesville, Missouri. Listening to KCMO radio.
Oh, the KCMO, Kansas City, yes, sir.
My satellite is Cinca with Bruce Willis in Die Hard 3. Bruce is a conservative.
Well, I haven't seen Die Hard 3 yet.
I've heard a lot of good things on it.
Really? The first two Die Hards were great movies.
Yeah, I never saw them. But I think it was about a year ago I saw Bruce Willis in Entertainment Tonight after Uncle Clinton.
And by the way, the Die Hard movies also, they were not gratuitous violence. Right, there was a lot of, I think, cool explosions and stuff, but they were not gratuitous. In other words, there was a serious dramatic presentation of the story. Right?
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, I see. Well, gratuitous violence generally means violence simply for the sake of it.
Oh, yeah, just blatantly kill the gore. Yeah. But as far as what mediums to attack, though, I hope Bob Dole doesn't stick with this too far, because that's sort of what Jim Bush, that's what he continues to try to do. Pandering a little bit too much to the far right, but Matt Robertson takes an audio position. But as far as what mediums to attack, though, it seems like they always go after separate TV. You know, and ABC and all things are now.
Well, they're putting
up the anti-violence to the places. When it's more cable TV.
Oh, yeah, but who cares about disclaimers? They just cause more people to watch it anyway. Network TV is different than movies. The reason it's different is because it's delivered into your home free of charge. Not like a cable channel that's scrambled, you got to pay for an order.
Oh, yeah, but when they pay from school, though, it's not the same as paying $5 to turn up TV.
Yeah,
so I think the same thing to me is to be attacking cable TV rather than going after network television.
All right, sir, thank you. I disagree. Again, cable is something that you've got to specifically order and pay for, and the really rough stuff is on pay-per-view, and you've got to specifically order that. Look, I really do delineate between an adult and a child. A child's mind is not yet formed. When it comes to children, I begin to panic. I think, well, let's not throw off their little heads with all the numbers at very certain hours. We can just keep it off my adults want violence and sex as entertainment. There's enough of it out there. There's enough of it out there. You don't rent it. Whatever. Married with children. Interesting case. A lot of people think of it as extremely anti-family, anti-moral, anti-everything that is American, but it is not presented as a serious presentation of any sort of American value. It is presented as comedy. And I might add, it's incredibly funny. I really love that show. It's one of my favorite shows. But I'm able to assimilate it and laugh at it. And not for 1 second do I begin to emulate it or consider that it is any sort of serious presentation or anything else. It's just a comment. An irreverent comment. Kind of in the spirit of and an extension of Archie Bunker. It's a riot. I mean, that's some of the funniest programs I've ever seen. Comedies are Married with Children. A lot of people think it's absolutely disgusting. I don't. I think it's funny. Let's do the Rockies. You're on the air.
Hi.
Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay, may I ask you a few questions, Joe?
Well, I don't know how many you have in mind.
Two.
Two will be okay.
Okay, first of all, I'm calling from the westernmost state of the Union, California.
Yes, sir.
This is the Anarchist.
Oh, yes.
Now, may I ask, you used to have a caller, obviously a neo-Nazi, and he used the name that started with a P. What is that name? What was that name? Do you remember?
Now that you've asked me, it flew right out of my head.
Okay.
Anyway, I know who you're talking about.
You also have a caller called Charlie, from California.
Oh, yeah.
He called the station, and he uses the name that starts with an E. What is that name?
Eric.
Okay. Yeah, when you went to mainland China, what'd you do about that? Where's our girl?
Well,
Where's our girl?
he's up now in Beijing being held.
Who are you?
Now, if I told you that, you're mystery ball, would you?
Pablo, aren't you a Pablo?
That's Pablo, that's it.
Yeah, what's it? Where's our girl? I want our girl back.
Beijing.
Pretty is.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, Joe, I'm in Star Falls, Texas.
Hi, Joe. How you doing?
I guess I'm one of those right wing where you live in Plank Coast.
I'm good.
There's something that I think Bob Dole can say that would bring us aboard. I believe that Pat Buchanan is probably our man.
I would think so.
And as far as
There's something about when Pat Buchanan says it, somehow, he needs it. When Bob Dole says it, all you see in the little White House is getting a little brighter.
oh yes, and George Bush got fired because about the taxes thing, not because of pandering to the religious right.
Yeah, of course, that's right. Mainly, two things got George Bush fired. One is broken tax promise, and two is absolutely ineffective, ridiculous, looking like he meant to lose campaign.
Well, if you don't try, he didn't try, because I think he figured that it was a lost cause from the beginning, because the people that voted in the primary for Pat weren't going to vote for him. They were going to Perot.
That's right. I believe that's right. All right, sir. Thank you. So again, all the surveys show that if you took the Perot vote, such as it was, and split it, it would have about evenly gone to Bush and Clinton. That's a fact, and that's a result of a lot of surveys. So it may well have been that Clinton would have won anyway. I'm sorry, but the more I think about it, the more I think that Bob Dole is not the man to beat Bill Clinton. He is the nominee. We're in trouble. We're really in trouble. I maybe in the end I'll change. And if it's the only choice, I'm sure I'll get behind Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton if those are the only choices. But I won't be a happy camper. East of the Rockies, you are on the air. No, you're not. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, this is Robert up in Portland.
Hi, Robert.
I remember. I read at least Isaac Asimov back from magazine that was thing.
Science fiction, EDX science.
Science fact. There was one that was science fact that he was majorly involved in, and that's why he was on the cover. He's written several non-fiction science books and whatnot, and a PhD.
Yes.
And one of them, in way back, there was a graph that he had found that a guy had plotted out. This got the quickening sort of that in all business Trump major wars had occurred.
In all business what?
In major business Trumps like recessions.
Oh, down cycles.
Down cycles.
Yes, more likely, surely, yes.
Civil War, the Revolutionary War, World War I, and World War II all happened in recessionary periods.
Well, in that case, Martin was up 86 points day before yesterday, and another 6 or 7 points yesterday, so I guess we'll catch up now. Yeah, he predicted the next one for about 2005. Okay, thank you very much for the call. I don't know how you can refer to what appears to be prognostication in a science fact, but we're okay. Southwest line, you're on the air. Hello. This is Bob. You can wait for that. Hi, Bob. Yeah, I just start out with Bob. What about Bob? Well, I'm pretty far away because I'm pretty religious, but he hasn't told me yet. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't vote for him, even if it was only in Clinton. Even if he blasts movies about natural born children and that kind of thing, that doesn't attract you. Okay. That's just, I think it's all politics. Got nothing to do with anything. That's like President Clinton on the radio. That was just made point to somebody. All the same thing. A little too coordinated. Yeah, maybe pretty sure. Real quick, because we're up. I didn't think President Clinton that he can't have his responsibility. Because he has already been our responsibility. He's going to say that we're not going to send ground troops at all, but if NATO asks them, we'll send ground troops. Yeah, or something else. No, you're right. One is when we want this is the man who will say anything on any given day. I've actually given up trying to figure out what it really means. Suicide by keeping this anti-Hollywood tape. It's quite obvious that he has not seen natural born killers, and if he did, he'd see the message about how Ron's published in the Verify the Organization before Tony Hodges and the Lord Fathers, and how we have become obsessed with the real life details of their crime. If Bob Dole wants to be president, he needs to focus on the issues that are on his mind. He certainly isn't government regulations about how they get put on the screen. It's crime, the affront, and welfare. People who want Hollywood television production regulated to me are lazy parents. They simply want to be able to drop their kid off at theater, they want to drop their kid in front of food to you and be done with it. Why don't they try parenting? I do it. I enjoy it. Bob needs to do the right thing, stick to the real issues, and don't play the religious right, which Pat Buchanan seems to have a happy home with, signed Eric, who Brand's passed. That was a well-written Eric, and I think right to the point. I want to now repeat that we're going to be reading the Pope's predictions for the year 2000 because of the very now close date of June 5th mentioned in it. And I will do it only once. I will do it next hour. when we have the final radio station for the evening joining us, we'll do it in the next hour. And that way, we have people calling back and saying, oh, I think you're gonna have to read it again, which I inevitably do, so get ready for that next hour. On the wild card line, you're on the high.
Good morning, Art. Jerry from Minneapolis.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, real quickly, Eric is right on principle, but wrong on tactics. The religious right out of the balance of power, and it'll swing both.
I think that may well be true from the right, yes,
Real quickly, first off, is your cartoonist friend in the skin has the bubble with popular fiction and natural born killers that is leading over to the gunman who is probably dying and who's on the street and killing people. Much like you were playing along with our talk radio.
Well, I don't want to say anything on something like that, just extensional liking both my American.
Well, let's have a little consistency here. The First Amendment either absolute right, responsibility applies,
No,
that's politically correct.
no, it's very well made. I mean, very well made.
Also, one more thing, Art, was a little over a year ago, probably almost 2 years ago now, that Sharon Leno was calling for specific laws and censorship against these same Hollywood types. Bob Dole wants to act responsibly. And I defended Bob Dole, but he was asking on a voluntary basis.
Oh, it's true. I know, no, all of that is true. I think the question is more whether this is something that Bob Dole really feels adulation is something important to him or just something he thinks he needs to say.
Oh, he's a classic technical politician. I don't have much, we're not too impressed by him, but I just marveling at the malicious irony of listening to liberals talk today about how he has no right to say this. And how can they defend what's going on in Hollywood? And yet, Jen Reno, they never gnashed their teeth 2 years ago when she was speaking up asking for the law.
Well, I'll tell you, all right, thank you. I'll tell you what CBS said. They observed that this may be difficult for President Biden because a lot of money and a lot of support, of course, comes from Hollywood to the president. And if the right makes Hollywood a big issue, it may be that Mr. Clinton will have to sort of sidle away from his post-Hollywood connections. CBS seems to be nearly removing that possibility. Nevertheless, I want to be fair, what Bob Dole said has value. The trouble is that I don't think he believes it. I don't think it's a real conviction of his. Doggone it anyway. I'm sorry that I have to be saying these things about Bob Dole, because actually he's a good man. Bob Dole is a good man. It's just that he's as far into the bureaucracy of Washington as MGM is into that of the movie world. And I just don't think he's going to be something. So I really hate being negative about Bob Dole. But I'm going to say what I think. And I think that what he was political opportunity. And that's it. On the wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah, Art Bell.
Let me check. Art? Yes, hello, this is Art.
Hello, this is Wayne from Index, Washington.
Wayne, would you turn off your radio?
Oh, are we on the air?
Well, I hope so.
You hope so? I didn't hear it, didn't sound like it on the radio. But, see, I had a gentleman call without the scouting phone number.
Yes.
And he also has another number, his hotline, he updates it every Wednesday as well. And,
No, I'd rather not give that one out. I think it's a 900 number.
oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah. No, let's not get that one out. We'll let you get that out.
Okay. And, I was gonna ask you about, the 6 satellite dishes up on top that you see.
Yes.
And, are they capable of aiming electric laser beams? Like, laser warfare, perhaps a laser dream about that.
Well, in general, satellite dishes are exactly that, satellite dishes. Now, I'm not familiar exactly with what a laser would look like, but I think it would not look like a satellite dish. So, we would obviously have to have some reflective properties. So I really can't answer your questions. Thanks for talking to, Marcia. All right, well, thank you. I can only say thank you. Western Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, is this Mark?
Yes.
Yes, this is, Two Birds from Gates, Oregon.
Gates, Oregon.
Right,
Two green is two birds.
right. Well, in India.
Oh, I guess that would be a Native American name. Okay, two birds. Well,
Yeah. I have, some information, there's been a lot of talk, about conspiracy theories lately.
Americans love them.
Yes, well, I happen to have some information about a conspiracy fact about the,
That can't be. I mean, if it is fact, then it is not a conspiracy. It's
oh, well,
I mean,
it is.
conspiracy by its very nature is a theory. I guess you could be convicted of a conspiracy. Okay, I see. All right. Okay, keep words. Let's get to it. What is it?
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar about the, original, the true 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
You mean an amendment that's not there now?
Right. There was an amendment that was ratified on December 10th, 1812. And, through a conspiracy of, the Fat Cats and their agents working to undermine the Constitution, they arranged to have it disappear over a period of 70 years.
Wow.
And,
I mean, like one word or sentence at a time, just,
no, they got control of the publishing industry, and through bribery and so forth, they,
like disappearing.
well, no, it was like on a state-by-state basis. It disappeared from, the law books in one state, then another, and then another. And by the time, the last incident that we've been able to discover was, 1876.
And what was this 13th Amendment that was
Okay, I can read the text of it.
No, just give us the idea.
Well, it's just basically it's one long sentence.
Which says roughly what?
Okay, it says, if any citizen of the United States shall accept, claim, receive, or retain any title of nobility or honor, or shall, without the consent of Congress, accept and retain any present, pension, office, or emolument of any kind whatever from any emperor, king, prince, or foreign power, such persons shall cease to be a citizen of the United States and shall be incapable of holding any office of trust or profit under them or either of them.
Well, you know that worries me. You know why?
Why?
Because somebody sent me a large sword and dumped, and had it described by, like I'm talking the big sword. I'm talking big regular sword. It's a sort of like a bell on it. Now, you're in trouble. Well, it sounds that way. All right, well, thank you very much for the call. Guess I'm in trouble, huh? Look at the sword. I've lost it all. But then again, that amendment's lost, so what can I do? On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hi. Hi. Turn the radio off and get closer to the phone or something. It's hard to hear you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Diamond Springs, California.
Okay. And Bill. Okay, Bill.
I guess you could get a couple tonight.
No, I was on the air.
I see.
Well, then she's actually Karen, I would imagine, would be able to do a better job on the Hollywood than Bob Dole did. So I thought, well,
The same thing, Joe. He didn't take any chances as to whether Joe really have been certified for this, what he's model as to project the breadth of what he laid out. Because this is one of the watershed, because no one's really specific. Well, I wonder, like, obviously, that it's a messy thinking over yes, time warner, all these issues was labeled the same kind of as a hominem attack, which is not the case at all. It was. Well, I tend to agree with it, and I don't care whether Boswell even like politics with this. You know, what he said is true. You know, what he said reflects my opinion. And if I got out front of my house and yelled at how I was, no one would hear it. But Boswell didn't happen to be. I think so. I didn't become it. And no one was really what said. Well, I'm glad he had it.
Well, okay, sir. I am not going to take issue with what Boswell said, because basically, with the exception of the natural-born killers, which I bet you haven't seen, I agree. And the values of Hollywood are very troublesome. However, there is this thing about the first one. I delineate between adults and children. I think most of the adults do. I said this last hour. I've seen natural-born killers. It had production value. There was lots of killing in it, but it was not gratuitous without a redeeming value, a dramatic value, a story value. All of that was there. So I wouldn't have picked that up. There's plenty of other ones out there with true gratuitous violence and no production value of that concern at all. But more important, I think, is whether or not I believe that Bob Bell means what he said, or whether he's saying it just because it has to be present. That's what I think. It was just a political statement. I like people who mean what they say and say what they mean. I am suspicious of people who do things for political convenience and gain. And I know that that's what politicians do. And that's what Bob Dole did. And so I guess I'm just observing. When Norman Lear said the following, quote, Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value became, end quote. Now that probably is also a fair statement, isn't it? Regarding politics. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value became. And I thought that was a reasonable response to Mr. Bill's blast in Hollywood. Bill's not wrong. I just don't believe that he means it. He has had a very long and somewhat distinguished career with some blemishes. But he's never harped on Hollywood before. And when you're now harping on Hollywood, you can look in Mr. Bill's eyes, you see them in the Sherman White Houses. And when he attacks them like Hollywood, the White Houses sort of, they get a little brighter, they pulse. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Good morning, you again for 2012.
Yes, sir.
I know you don't really agree with this, but I think if Bob Dole, if he gets the nomination, I think he will do more harm to the Republican Party than Clinton be in office for another 4 years.
No, you're right. I don't agree with that.
I look at the picture. Bob Dole does not represent the up-and-coming Republicans in the Republican Party.
Well, I do agree with that.
I mean, he has, if you look back at everything he has done, he is basically flip-flopped almost as much as Clinton. He has.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Bobo's compromised. Bobo's been, all his adult life, a compromiser. That's what he does. I mean, that's what a minority leader and then the minority leader is what they do. It's compromise. He's not portraying for strong leadership behind him. He touts it as such, but a life of compromise is not a good OJT for a president who does not make decisions.
If he can't make decisions now, what good will he do if he is elected, which I don't think he will be, by the way. But if he is elected, he'll hurt the Republican Party. It'd be better for Clinton to be in there and let him do his political pandering like he's doing right now, than for Dole to get in there and turn away some of the young Republicans that are coming up.
Well, frankly, thank you. I don't really like either possibility, and I'm hoping for something else. Well, Fredline, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Eric. This is Eric Indulgence. Hello, Eric. How's it going?
Fine.
I was watching some of these speakers. I think I believe it was on, I think it was Nightline. It was on my region network, so it was while you were out of town.
Yes.
Playing vacation, right? And he was asked, straight out, if he planned on running for president. And he had said, no, if he plans on taking the famous speaker and focusing on the accomplishments as speaker.
I know you said that.
Yeah, but I wasn't particularly clear on that, but man, I tell you, that was ridiculous. I have a opportunity of watching feet on Tuesday, he was speaking in front of a bunch of realtors, which anybody else would have been a boring thing to watch, but man, I was just captured.
They're not. Well, the guy has to deal with. There's absolutely no denying. Not the guy who hate his guts. You've got to admit he's an intellect.
He's brilliant. And the other thing with Ola, I couldn't believe that I wanted to hear more. He's talking about, the economy and lowering interest rates for, houses and whatnot. But he really go on about some very political aspects. I thought it was quite fascinating, actually.
Well, I'm sure it was, and he certainly is, and I hope, I've got my fingers crossed. He has said no Sherman-esque statements, and that always leaves the door open. In the last couple days, he's made some statements, and he might be beginning to think about it again. Well, you should. Let me see if I can get this now. Shame on you for implying all, or even most women, would react nicely to a fur coat. The man gave me anything with fur on it. I'd feel like retching all night long. Oh no, it's worse. She said, it's not retching. I would feel like reacting all night, like Lorena Bobbitt. Oh, that's terrible. Then she says, welcome back. Signed that liberal Sue in Illinois. Yes, you're right about Bob Dole. Just let me remember that, Sue. I think most women, I stick with that. Most women, I think, would very much enjoy a fur coat, Sue, but certainly after what you said, far be it from me to give you anything with even a little hair on it. I mean, I got much more on whatever it is I have to give you, Sue. That's liberal name, Sue. You're listening to one way, someone's time on I am representing you of President Hosea from Q-First, 1995. Somewhere live on Premier Radio Network. So I don't know if there's a big crystal crusade and two first. That's what I'm doing. Tutorials I couldn't hear. I'm Marcel, and we're racing through the neighborhood with 5 hours on screen and ridiculous on things short radio. Once in a while, use your next one, you're on the air. So, hello. How are you? I'm fine.
Well, I just had a couple of questions for you. Well, actually, one thing, the guy who's calling about the satellite delay,
Yes.
basically that would be a result of people having a travel finder, wouldn't it? 22,000 miles up and back. I mean, that's a lot further than any landmines have to go.
Well, it is, but they also get those delays with landline as well. And a lot of times it produces very annoying echo, and they've got a lot of equipment about that. So I'm really not sure. I know that sometimes we get great connections from Alaska, sometimes we get very poor connections with a great deal of delay. Where are you?
Actually, I'm in Santa Barbara.
Well, there's no delay at all.
Hey, last night I heard a woman call, and she said she was down recently a brother in North Carolina that was given up to adoption, et cetera, et cetera. And she asked what frequency he could get on. And then she had another question. And you said you'd come back at the top of the hour or after the news and answer it. I'm not sure I ever heard that. And that's what the question was.
I remember. It was for the psychic hairs on the back of my neck side.
My earthquake. Okay. Well, basically what I was calling about is that, I consider myself pretty much a typical Republican, a mix of your moderate to conservative, and maybe some surprisingly, I don't know, you could throw me and find maybe some liberal type leanings, but basically a one of the road Republican. And I agree with you that Bob Dole, I don't think he even ends up being a viable candidate because I don't think we should fool ourselves. A real trick here.
Well, so what's going on? Here I am with that view, and you with that view. You just described yourself about the way I describe myself, and yet all the polls show Bob Dole. I mean, it's so far out in front, it's not even funny. So we are not cynical.
Well, if I can use some sports analogy, baseball. You start off kind of at one angle and you end up going to the right and you come all the way around. You end up coming to home, it ends up being the middle. Now, basketball and football, they end up switching sides in half, so you can't really use that. So let's say Republicans end up going to, lead off and end up towards first base. So I guess that means Democrats run the bases backwards, as far as I'm concerned. But what I'm saying is that everything's geared towards the people that vote.
I hate baseball. You should use baseball analogies.
Well, it's not going to seem to be fitting for me. But I'm disenchanted with it myself. And let me just get back to this. What I'm trying to say is that not very many people vote, frankly. And it seems to me a bit of a game in that there's a top three, you start off on 1 degree, and you come around towards the middle. Even when the two politicians such as Truman and Nixon recognize the fact that you start off leaning, say Nixon would be towards the right of it, and then you end up coming towards the middle for winning. Now I can see where Dole is positioning himself too early, way too far right, where that leaves a lot of room for Clinton to fight over in the middle and easily eliminate them.
Well, that's a very good point. Thank you. What you have to do generally is, as you're headed toward the convention and the nomination, you do have to go either very far right or very far left. Because those are generally the delegates and the people who attend the conventions. They're very much at the extreme. And then after that, when you get into the real campaign, you got to pull yourself back to the center. So that is right. It's just that somehow, what Bob Dole did yesterday seemed, God, I hate doing this, insincere. Now, that's a very rough word, and it may well be that Bob Dole does feel somewhat this way, but it seemed like a purely political blast with one particular intent. That was to attract the religious right as much as possible from Pat Buchanan, who, by the way, I think is the genuine article. I don't like saying that. I mean, Bob Dole is a genuine article in the sense that he is a good man with a lot of distinguished service to the United States and a great war record and a hell of an individual and very brave person, and he's all of that. I just don't think that he's the right man to run against Bill Clinton. And to me, that's important. Because as I sit here contemplating the possibility of another 4 years of Bill Clinton, the psychic hairs and the political hairs, and even the hair hairs, all stand up on the back of my neck. On the first time caller line, you are on the air.
Yes, Art, I wanted to ask a couple questions, and I'll take your answer off the air.
Okay.
I'm calling from San Francisco. My name is Cindy. I'm working on Cancer.com.
Oh, the big one up there. Yes, Cindy.
Yeah, I wanted to know when's the next time you're going to have Mr. Scully on? And in your opinion, do you think that the scenario, the latest one predicted, has begun since the earthquake in Russia happened?
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Next time I'm going to have Mr. Stallion on. No, we did a gigantic show with him. As you know, now I'll go 4 hours. 4 hours. It's the longest interview ever given to anybody by Gordon Stallion. So we'll wait a little while. I mean, Gordon will come back on by us too. And now, that may be influenced by what happens with this cycle. Now, the earthquake in Russia, about 30 miles from the Japanese coast, may well be, and according to Gordon Stallion, may well be the beginning of the cycle of the larger quakes. If it is, and if I see this cycle progress as we all fear that it might, then let me put it to you this way. Before the cycle gets past South America, I will have Gordon Stallion back on deep and on it. So I'm watching the present cycle very carefully, and we will see. How's that for an answer? Best I can do. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
All right, this is Craig, in Memphis with WMC.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, I heard that Bob Dole mentioned the movie True Romance.
He did. I've not yet seen it.
I've seen it. It was great. It really didn't have much sex in it. I thought it was very violent, like all Tarantino's movies. But I tell you what I think would be interesting and probably won't happen. Bridges in Madison County is going to be a smash.
That's what they say.
Well, and what does it deal with? It deals with a woman having an affair.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I don't know much about it.
Well, I won't watch it for the but I haven't read it myself. But it's, as far as the morality, you won't hear anybody talk about it. And it's, very popular.
Well, I think the ones he picked were easy targets. I think that, I'm sorry, but I think that it was just a sort of a political thing for Bob Dole to do. And because I think that it makes me less interested in Bob Dole. I mean, there's a lot of really important issues right now that Bob Dole could have used his present forum to pound on. I mean, really important stuff. Bosnia comes to mind. Leadership in a situation like Bosnia comes to mind. There are just all kinds of things. The welfare state, the fact that Clinton really hasn't done anything. Healthcare, all kinds of issues Bob Dole could have used the forum to pound on. But he took an easy shot. He did it for an apparent. He was very transparent.
There's one thing I want to mention. Back when Paul was I pretty much liked a lot what he was saying. I'll probably someone first start talking about deficit spending.
Right.
You put a brand new topic. But the thing that I really didn't share with him was there was some kind of neighborhood with a real bad drug problem. I'm like, just give me a couple weeks and I'll solve it. And apparently, block it off and go door to door. And I remember that. And then I was like, no way. I mean, everything else does, he was kind of quirky and crazy. I liked it. And the thought of someone just, a police state in this one little place, but, things like that can just keep happening. And that's when he lost me.
I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. I remember that statement tonight. I liked Ross Perot for the most part. Ross Perot is kind of crazy. Ross Perot is a bomb thrower. Ross Perot is a man who will say exactly what's on his mind. Ross Perot is somebody who would have shaken up Washington in a way it's never been shaken up before, and it would have done a lot more good for Washington than Bill Clinton's time in the years he's been there. I voted for Ross Perot. I agonized about that. I mean, I got so angry at Ross Perot when he dropped out, I could almost not go on the air. I was red-faced. And then the campaign went on and on and on. I'm looking at George Bush, and I'm looking at Bill Clinton, and I'm going, oh, I just can't do it. Got to sleep at night, and so I went for Ross Perot. And I can see a scenario building this time when I would go for a third-party candidate. Maybe. It depends on who the Republican nominee is. If it's Bob Dole, I may have a problem. Yeah, we'll see. I tell you, Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, now there you'd have an election. There you'd have something worth the price of admission. There you'd have something that would be a ripping, terrible election of the century. If the O.J. Simpson trial is the trial of the century, this would be the election of the century. No doubt about it. First time caller in line, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, let me turn my radio off here real quick.
Thank you.
I really enjoy your show. It gives me a lot to think about during the day. And something I was thinking about, have you seen the movie Lion King?
No, but I would like to.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good family movie. Disney always had a little dark side in your pictures. Anyway, my 8-year-old boy, he was noticing that when the bad lion named Scar took over the kingdom, the kingdom, it went to crap. It just, everything died. There was no water. And he told me that he thought it was
a bad line, you know?
right, yeah. And he was so mad about that. And he also said it's so much like it when he said the David Matter.
Well, that's true. Thank you very much for the call. I agree with that. Look at his statements in the last few days. It's been like, well, we're not going to put ground troops in Bosnia. And, well, maybe in these conditions, we will put ground troops in Bosnia. And then the next day, well, we're not going to put ground troops in Bosnia. We get a lot of blood. Well, that's all in the space of a count. 1, 2, 3 days. I have given up. I really have given up listening to Bill Clinton. I just simply don't believe anything he's got to say anymore. It's all contingent on what the reaction is currently. He just does not make decisions that he sticks with or that he really. So I guess what I want, and it's the same complaint I have with Bob Dole, I want somebody who really believes what he's saying. I think that's what attracted me to Perot. Wild a man as he was, the guy believed what he was saying. What he said was very good to him. He had the strength of his convictions. That's what I liked about Ronald. The strength of his convictions. Who have we seen lately like that? I even have complaints about Gingrich. It's pretty good. I have complaints about, I'll tell you what, a man with the strength of his convictions is Kent Buchanan. There's no question about it. I like Buchanan, I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. But if he begins to catch fire, and I would do whatever I could to do to help, I'd be in there plugging away for Pat Buchanan. In the meantime, I'll say again, Gingrich, Clinton, there you've got a real election. Western Rockies, you're on the air. Hi. I beg your pardon.
Art. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was playing with the phone and I thought you were part of it. And when you visit over into China, do they have all the controversies like they do here with their government? Or because they're communists, they're just quiet about it?
Well, their attitude about dissent is a little different than ours.
Yeah.
They shoot people.
Well, that's not fair.
Don't laugh. I mean, a few cracks about the leadership there, you can be body points.
Yeah. So I was just curious over that, you know, 'cause we here in America have our freedom of free speech and all, and with all the controversy over this the coming elections of the president and all that. I was just curious to hear what you recently found out over there.
Well, that's it, sir. Yes, thank you. Before you can say 7.62, your liver's in somebody else. On the wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
Doing fine, sir.
Welcome back. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated I think it was the two poignant gentleman you had from the middle of nowhere in Oregon.
Oh, he calls himself radio's regular guy.
Yeah, radio. He got a guy talking on there a while back about the Philadelphia experiment.
Well, that was me.
That's right. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I find those very, very fascinating. Just real quick, I've been hearing a lot about Bosnia tonight on CBS News, or I think it was NBC News, they were talking about how the president was changing his mind again, and that there might not be any reaction to there are some 2,000 troops in Germany now preparing for World War II.
Live fire exercises, yeah, they're getting ready, sure.
Well, my son is in one of the units in Germany. He told me last October that he was going to be going to Macedonia. He called me in April and said, May 16th was the day they were going to Macedonia. I said, where are you going to be? He said, they're going to be about 100 yards from the Bosnian borders on an outpost overlooking this whole thing. And I said, you tell me who's going to be out there with the bullets are flying? He said, well, when his advanced troops went in, set up the outpost, the Bosnians went into heightened state of alert because they thought the United States was going to invade.
Yeah, your son is what's known as a tripwire.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they say there's only 500 of them, but actually they sent the whole battalion, there's about 1,500 of them down there.
That may be. It's a tripwire. In other words, if we come across the border, that's it. Then we are involved. Then we are at war. And frankly, if they begin to cross borders, then I think there will be very little choice anyway.
Yeah, well, the thing I told him was, I said, well, make sure you shoot back. He said, well, the UN commander is a Swede, from what I understand, and he's American. And he wasn't going to give him that authority until after he saw them go out and practice for a couple of weeks and decided that they could have the authority on a limited basis to defend themselves even when necessary. I thought, well, I'm not real happy that that's what's going on, but if that's the case, make sure when you shoot, make sure you shoot to kill to defend yourself, or they're not going to stop. So, anyway, I don't know how many American people know that, but I tried to get to.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and I would just, the advice I would give my son is, you tell when Mr. Sweeney, somebody shoots at you, shoot back and shoot to kill.
I told him, I said, it's a problem when I'm fighting on it, shoot for the head, run like hell. But anyway, I tried to,
You're sort of a modified version of these things.
I told him, I said, I tried to see and I tried to tell him that we really got troops just seven to burn and going in. And I thought, well, I wish somebody would say it, but nobody has. So, that's an opportunity to keep good work.
Thank you, sir. They're really not already going in. The troops in Macedonia are there as a tripwire. What that means is that if the Serbs come rush across the border, anybody comes rushing across the border, and Macedonia begins to be involved, then we're saying that's our line in the sand. We will then truly be involved. And by the way, I would back that idea. We just cannot let the Serbs run wild and begin to do a Hitler on Europe. So, that part of what we're doing, I think, is appropriate. We don't want another Germany, do we? But we don't have one yet, and that's not what's going on. And so I'm not ready for a big fight. But apparently a lot of people back in Washington are. We're going to be reading the Pope's predictions for the year 2000 in the next hour. That's unfair. Kids Hollywood night is more like it. Campaign 96 on the way is more like it. CBS called it sex, drugs, rock, and roll. Okay, roll. In fact, Hollywood movies, the newsrooms, the volumes, the industry as well. He's a described and gratuitous violence. He said everything that illustrates the basic of culture. With indecent movies and deviant music, he said, quote, the line has been crossed. Not because of taste, but of human dignity and decency, relying on extreme factors, turn out nightmares of depravity. He cited natural born killers for its violence, true romance for its sexually explicit scenes, and blasted Time Warner to my crew after to Time Warner, he said, quote, I asked the executives of Time Warner a question. Must you debase our nation and threaten our children for the sake of corporate profits? End quote. So, the other question I have for you, Bob Dole, evidently, that news this hour was that Time Warner was a contributor to Bob Dole's campaign. My question is whether you think Bob is sincere, or whether the new White House's, if you can see it in the corner of his eyes, when he gets close up the camera, or closely, and has he just taken a political shot? I'm sorry, but that's what I believe. And I'll say it again and again, Bob Dole is a good, honorable person. He's a good man. He's a politician. And he's, in his career, he's not been known to take shots at Hollywood before. And so I think this is just, it's the campaign. And I think it's an attempt to co-opt some of the religious right vote that otherwise no doubt would vote for Pat Buchanan, who frankly, while I don't think he has a great chance at the office, is a genuine artifact. And if the religious right vote wants to cast a vote for somebody who really means what he says, well, that sounds harsh. Then I think Pat Buchanan would be your guy, not Bob Dole. I see what Bob Dole's trying to do, and I'm not buying, I guess. Norman Lear said the following, quote, Hollywood, in its presentation of violence and sex, has no more to answer for than the Congress of the United States. The name of the game in the entertainment business is short-term profit. This is exactly what Congress is all about. How you can get elected in the short term and every other value be damned. End quote. So that's probably true too, isn't it? So I'm not buying what Bob Dole is saying. I'm also not buying what the president is saying, by the way. 3 days ago, it was no Americans on the ground in Bosnia. Then a couple of days ago, it was Americans with my product indeed to the ground in Bosnia. We've got to go in and rescue the UN, or help them, worse yet, to reassemble in more defensible positions to do God knows what. Which was really ridiculous. Then last night he was in Montana saying, well, no Americans would do a lot of blood spilled. So I have no idea what it is that Mr. Quick is saying. What it clearly said yesterday was that the UN prisoners of war, and that's what they're calling them now, and the Serbs are calling them, that if we go in and try to rescue them or do anything else, there's going to be a blood bath. And I would imagine the Serbs mean exactly what they are saying. I would think this is a good time for diplomacy, and the diplomacy ought to be, to go to both the Bosnians and the Serbs and say, we're ready to get up. Now, what do you guys think? We can do this the easy way or the hard way. We've got to do it the easy way. You come to the pass, but you can get out safely. We'll get out there and you can fight our own. Now, there's a piece of diplomacy that I like. Involves not saying with US GIs over there. It's just one of those guys that say, let's go time out. You want to work cool. We want to get the UN guys out. We don't want to shut a rock out doing it. Let them out. They'll be out of your head. Get both sides to agree with that. Anybody think that might be a good idea? When I was in the Tokyo area, I came upon a lady being very happy. She was in Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, which I mean prefer. And she had a little baby with her in a stroller, a little baby was naked. She had just adopted this baby, spent 2 months there adopting the child. And it was good. She was proud of mom, and I was happy for her. But I thought, why did she go to Ho Chi Minh City?